Ho 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 and GhazzyTV. That's the cringiest intro I could come up with. Anyways, GhazzyTV here with another Path of Exile build guide showcase. Today we're going to be updating the Ball Lightning Miner that we showed you before the patch notes. Before the league was released, we had some scuffed up gameplay with it, but I decided to actually play the build. I will tell you, I'll go through the build real quick, and then we're going to go in and do the boss in here to show you gameplay of a map as well as one of the conquerors. The biggest issue with this build is two things. One being that you're going to be spamming your detonate mine key. For me, it's D key all the freaking time, which is really annoying. The other issue is that the way I've designed it, it makes it very squishy, which makes it not able to handle the degen shit happening in the last phase of the Awakener. The damage is there and is absolutely able to destroy Awakener. However, the last phase is so many degen grounds on the things that's happening, so it doesn't simply survive doing Awakener. So I wouldn't recommend this for an Awakener fight. It's a Saboteur, currently level 86, support gems are level 19-ish, something like that. My Ball Lightning is level 19, and I will show you the skill tree real quick by having Face Acro Acrobatics, lots of crit multi, very little HP. There are many ways you can do this better by simply having like a two-handed staff, for example, allowing you to use Count's Heart to ramp up the HP a bit more. I think I would rather have between 5.5 to 6,000 HP, but the problem with that is that I would have to use a Count's Heart because of the way the tree is designed, which would then force me to have a two-handed staff, which would be perfectly fine to use as well. Just noticed that I forgot to give myself back my mana flask from this character, so let's do that. So I'm going to show you the map, and I'll talk about some of the feelings I have with this build, and I'm going to dive more into detail after the gameplay footage. So basically, why I feel like Ball Lightning is better than Arc is that the difference between these two is that Arc has an instantaneous damage application, making it pseudo better for the sake of clearing. Oh, that's right there. I was like, where did my flask go? However, Ball Lightning is tremendously amazing when it comes to actually dealing... Oh, it's a core map. Yeah. When it comes to dealing boss damage. Because each ball can do up to 6 hits per second as long as the ball remains within hit range of an enemy. Which is why we're speccing into a little bit of extra area of effect with our mines. I haven't reached that yet. Need another 2 levels. But we're estimating at least 6 hits per second per ball on bosses, allowing us to take our average hit damage and then multiplying that by 6 and then multiply that with the amount of mines you're throwing out. So if you look at my mine count for bosses, I can prep up 19 mines. So that means my average hit damage multiplied by 6, then multiplied by 19. That's the burst shaper damage that I'll be able to do on bosses. I'll show you the PUB and dive more deeply into the actual calculations of this. The original video we had in the past, I will link that video in the description below if you guys want to see how that looked when we did it before the league released, was actually using Minefield. I now changed Minefield for Swift Assembly, which made clearing feel a lot better as you can faster throw out the mines, but I don't throw out 5 mines at the same time. So there's that issue. The build is, as mentioned before, a bit squishy. However, it is handling tier 16 maps already from level 71. I didn't feel that the squishiness was an issue for one of the bigger bosses. The Metamorph, for example, in the current league, we're completely destroying, and that feels very good as well. However, Awakener is where the squishiness just takes over and tells you to fuck off and die. So you can see the damage on these bosses are perfectly fine, even with a couple of mines out. So before we dive into more of the generic approach, I do want to bring in the topic of some details, and that is why I'm not using multiple projectiles through Dying Sun class, which is expensive by the way, but more specifically about the Helmet enchant. The thing is, every mine counts as a separate cast. Since every mine pops out 1 Ball Lightning and they're counting as a separate cast, that means that every mine will be able to do damage to a boss. Whereas if you have extra projectiles, it would make all the mines apply extra projectiles as well. But that would only make clearing a bit smoother, so to say. But as you can see, that's absolutely not needed. That means that more projectiles will actually not deal more damage to bosses because they would not be able to hit with multiple balls from the same cast. Would not be able to do damage to bosses. So we're not simply just ignoring that and going for pure damage on it, because this build is designed to do Metamorph bosses as well as the Conqueror bosses very effectively in clearing tier 16 maps. And my plan right now is to actually have a separate character to kill the Awakener with. I'm going to put up a portal here, and I'll show you how the damage looks on the core map. And it's basically this. And he's dead. Then we're gonna go Piety. She's gonna pop, and then she's dead. And then we're gonna not get exploded by that. And we're gonna do this, and he's dead. And then we're gonna do this, and she's dead. And that's that face. Is there anything else we need to talk about? You can have a Wise Oak or on the Serious Promise. The difference are very, very small on the two. Where are you? Where you at, bro? There we go. Ouch. That actually hurt. Alright, so now we're gonna do the boss fight. Pop a new portal in here. Oh, we have Tane. I can show you Tane how this looks. There is a huge risk that we die here because of our squishiness. But we'll see how it goes because of actually Malachi. We'll see how it feels. That's the explosion, and he's dead. This can be played in very low budget as well. You don't need the like an insane amount of damage or on your weapons, which I have decent weapons. I'll talk about the details of them in a bit. But you don't really need super high gear for this to work. And you can definitely play it with a 5-link early on as well. Don't stand close to her. When she does the whirlwind shit, get the fuck out of it. Oh, my bad. I thought it was the wave attack. When that happens, you just have to dodge the shit. Like I mentioned, very squishy, so you should be making sure that the boss is either dead or that you know what the fuck's happening. That's the whirlwind I thought she was doing. You do that, and then the boss will be dead, or should be dead at least. Can you spawn and die, please? Before you kill me, thank you. Very easy to do, very simple. Just make sure you understand the mechanics like I fucked up there. And you'll be able to do these fights super easy. So, I'm going to show you the gear I have on my character and explain why things are better, they look better than what they are. Kaka, if you're online, could you link me your weapons in-game and I'll show you. First off, the weapons. Now this weapon here looks really good. It's rather expensive, but it's actually, you can get much better weapon for much less currency than what this is showing. First off, it's a dagger, having an implicit with crit. The best implicit would be from a Sample Spectre, giving you penetration of elemental damage, or simply just having elemental or spell damage from things like a wand or a scepter that gives you extra damage would actually be better than a crit base. The plus level of all skills, really good. You want to make sure that you have crit on both weapons, and then you want to have flat added spell damage to your weapons. This one I don't have that, so instead I crafted 42 spell damage with non-chaos extra chaos. Not too hard to get this type of weapon. The other one, I have a little bit of cold damage to spells. I have the tier 1 crit, elemental extra chaos, and I've crafted crit multi on it as well. If you compare those two weapons with something like, let's see if we can make sure that's visible on the stream here. We have, for example, this weapon right here, which you barely can see. Here's... No, that's not the right weapons. That's the right weapon. Can you guys even see it with the chat? This one has increased lightning damage from Alva, up to 77%. It has a base implicit of 40% elemental damage. And then it also has a tier 1, I think. Is that a tier 1? That's a tier 1 added lightning damage to spells. And then a really high tier... Is that a tier 1? It actually is. Global critical strike multiplier. And this one, you can't craft anything on this one. But that scepter alone gives you a bit over 100% increased spell damage and a tier 1 added lightning damage to spells, as well as global critical strike multiplier. This weapon is cheaper than both of my daggers, but this one would give me a lot more damage than any of my daggers that I have, making this a better weapon, and it's cheaper. The other one is a weapon we talked about before. Let's see if we can bring that one in screen. Yeah, I know. There we go. This is probably the best type of weapon you can get for this build. This one is rather expensive. It has damage penetrates elemental resistances. It has high lightning damage. It has a little bit of lightning damage added to spells, critical strike chance, and global critical strike multi, and then you bench crafting lightning damage to spells. This weapon is arguably 3 or 4 times better than any of my daggers. So this is a type of weapon you would want to go for with this type of build. However, as mentioned, the build is squishy. The way to fix that, if you want to, is to skip these weapons, go with a two-handed staff with plus level skill gems, in this case lightning skill gems, a lot of damage, preferably flat and increased spell damage or lightning damage, and then use a Count's Heart. And that's going to bring you up to 5,000 something HP, even more. And you can rework the tree a little bit to be even better in terms of defensive stats as well on top of that. So that's basically the weapons. The rest of my gear is basically a hunter, no, it's a shaper influenced chest piece. And I have it evasion because I want to have more evasion chance on top of my dodging. I want to have it with the spells have increased critical strike chance. That's very important. And then increased life. Now you can get much better by having some better rolls. Of course, I benched in the percent life on this, and that was pretty easy to get. And you can craft this fairly simple as well yourself. Sorry. The helmet, like I mentioned before, I've crafted this with life and metallic fossils to get myself minus, and nearby enemies having minus lightning resistance, having a lot of HP, which is crucial to bring up the lack of defense of the build. And then you're in a situation where you deal more damage to enemies with minus lightning resistance that are nearby. The enchant is ball lightning damage rather than extra projectiles. And the reason for that is that, as mentioned before, more projectiles does not mean more damage versus bosses, and the whole build is designed to kill bosses in a few seconds. The boots, very generic, just simple movement speed, life and resistances, as much life as you can muster. Same thing with the gloves. However, there's a nice alpha drop that lets you have increased critical strike chance against enemies that are shocked. Belt, straightforward, just life and resistances, as much life as you can get. Amulet, you want to have life resistances and critical strike multiplier. I went with a mine throwing speed. I don't really need that since we're using swift assembly anymore, so it's just a matter of preference when it comes to that end. The first ring is life resistances and fixing your attributes when required. The second ring, here's the funny part. We're using Malachi's Artifice. This also means we're going to be able to do a lot more damage versus bosses, but it also comes with the little problem that we'll lose out on stats from a rare ring. The reason we have this is because I'm using Armageddon brand. So I have an Orb of Storms with Curse and Hit. So I'll talk about the gems in a while. And this one curses conductivity to increase its damage taken. And then I just throw out some Armageddon brand. So what then happens is that this is forcing elemental equilibrium on top of Armageddon brand. So as soon as Armageddon brand hits something, there's two things that happens. EE exists, and I'll do an amazing amount of extra damage because of it. And there's also a chance for Armageddon to crit and then apply a burning effect. That's also why we have increased fire damage to our spells by flat numbers on one of our jewels to make sure that we can apply burning. The reason that is important is because of this. We are speccing explosive exports. This means that on burning enemies, no matter how low burning damage we have on enemies, they will make us have 30% plus the critical strike multiplier, which is the best thing we can get in terms of damage, allowing us to deal extra damage just because they're burning. Even if you're doing one damage per second, you're still going to have 30% crit multi thanks to this. You also get increased chance against shocked enemies, which you have because of you're using lightning spells, and you're also because you have your skitter bots, which applies a 15% shock effect. They also apply a chill effect, which allows you to penetrate enemies because the enemies will be chilled when they're nearby you, thanks to the skitter bots. Pyromaniac for reduced reservation of your mines, as well as some regen. We're using Bomb Specialist. Pretty obvious. No one uses Demolition Specialist, so we're picking up Burning Shadows to make sure the enemies are blinded, to further emphasize on the lack of defense, to make sure the enemies are blinded. Another little neat detail with this build is actually that I managed to pick myself up a jewel that gives me 4% chance to knock enemies back on hit. This was very comfortable in certain fights because you're hit so many times per second. This allows you to actually be in a position where enemies get knocked away from you, to again emphasize and try to solve the lack of defense. So let's go back to the PUB. As you can see, the damage doesn't look that great because this is average hits. So the way you calculate this is to take the average hit, multiply that by 6, and then multiply it by the amount of mines you have out. So our burst damage with this, it's not accurate, but for the sake of showing you, 59,000 average hits times 6. That's our damage per DPS per mine. We could pop 19 mines versus bosses. That's a burst damage of 6.7 million. But in the PUB linked in the description, we have Malachi's Artifice, but Elemental Equilibrium is not actually applied in the configuration. So what you do is you just spec into EE to see that the damage is actually 81,600 with this build right now. So you type this multiplied by 6, then multiplied by 19, and you can see that your burst damage once you prepped up mines from metamorphs, for example, which is why we killed them so fast, is 9.3 million damage during the first second of the fight. So that's the way you calculate the DPS, and because of blast waves, you're actually going to be able to deal more damage than this, because more often than not, you're going to have more than 6 times that a ball will have time to hit an enemy. The reason I'm doing this calculation is because they can only hit 6 times over the lapse of an entire second, but if the balls are on top of the, in range to hit an enemy, you will be continuously dealing damage for the mines that you had out that 1 second before, on top of the new ones you're sending out. So the next second you'll be doing a little bit more damage. Granted, you won't have 19 mines during that second. Either way, so that's the way we calculate the DPS. This will be linked in the descriptions below. The difference between this and the video I made before was that I removed efficient explosives because I simply didn't feel that they were efficient enough. No pun intended. But yeah, it's just not efficient enough to spec into these nodes. Instead, I wanted to get blast waves and then more jewels to get myself HP, maybe another knockback on hit kind of jewel, and then just crit multi basically. But I also found out that it's better to get flat added damage to spells, such as this jewel giving you lightning damage to spells while dual wielding, gave you more damage than what you would get from a crit multi roll. So it's pretty interesting to see that, to be honest. Other than that, leveling, I used Freezing Pulse till level 12, and at level 12 I used Blast Chain Mines with Arc, and then just added Lightning Radical, whichever you had colors for. And then as soon as I could, I would add Swift Assembly. You can level with Arc, because I feel like Arc with the instantaneous damage feels a bit better when you're leveling. But if you go with Ball Lightning, which is what I did because I wanted to play the build as I was leveling, make sure you add slower projectile as soon as you can to the links basically. And I would replace Blast Chain Mines with High Impact Mine as soon as you get that available. And it's very straightforward. Just follow the tree, get some life and resistance on your gear as you're leveling, level with the ability. It's absolutely beautiful. Anyways, guys, this is the quick thrown together update for this build. I didn't want to spend too much time. Hope you enjoyed it. Like I mentioned, again, the pros and cons of the build: it destroys everything except the Awakener. Little bit squishy. It is able to be sorted by using a two-handed staff instead, and then smacking on a Calm's Heart or something like that would increase the budget to the build, but it's absolutely doable to increase the defensive aspect of the build. I couldn't be arsed to, because it's already destroying everything I'm doing except Awakener. So let me know in the comments below what you guys think about this build. Until next time, boys, stay safe and keep rocking.